Hey everyone, welcome to the Cast and Spear podcast. My name is John, and we have back on the show Matt Hoang, also aka Mr. California on IG. I'm sure you guys who are in the spearfishing community and girls have seen a lot of his pictures and videos because he's an absolute baller when it comes to spearfishing. Welcome to the show, Matt.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing great. I want to talk about Baja. You know, one of the times that my first time to Baja was with Matt. We did kind of a crazy trip down to Tortugas. It was like a 16-hour drive. It was insane. And he introduced me to the wonderful aquarium that is all the crazy fish down there. So I want you to kind of enlighten us a little bit on some of the fisheries, including, let's start with Gulfies. What do you want to share about the infamous Gulf grouper?
Gulf grouper are delicious. That's what.
Shh, don't tell
No,
anybody.
I'm just kidding. No, yeah, we're so fortunate to be able to go down to Baja and try to target these fish, man. As you know, grouper in California, we have, I think, berm tail groupers, but they are completely protected. So grouper is a big no-go in Southern California. But fortunately, just a few hours down south, you can go and try to get these delicious Gulf grouper that are so powerful and so big. It's so fun to shoot. It's totally worth the trip down there.
So tell me, is there anything special and on how to target them? Like, do you have to dive deep? Do you need like a speedo? Do you need to just chill there for a bit? Should you be using a slip tip, a flopper? What are some of the mechanics here?
Yeah, I guess, I'll just go kind of through my last trip down to Baja because it was lit. There were so many grouper down there. So first things first, do you need to dive deep? No. The answer is no, you don't need to dive deep. I think I've seen people shoot. I've actually shot grouper at a depth of like 30 feet. Dive down to 25 feet. You see them at 30 feet. So you don't need to dive deep. In terms of mechanics, pretty much the main thing is, I don't know, like just making sure your gear is rigged up, because the challenge with this fish and the biggest challenge with any kind of grouper is making sure that you get the fish and that it doesn't hole up. So you want to be geared for that. You want to be prepared for that. And then after that, you can kind of figure out how to find them and then how to learn their behavior and shoot them more effectively. But first part is getting equipped properly. So in that regard, what I generally like to recommend, or what I generally rock, is a float line with a breakaway. So the main reason I do that is because I want to be able to shoot the fish and then put the brakes on the fish as soon as he runs. So these fish are ambush predators, right? And they got these big bursts of speed, so powerful. They bend shafts in the U. I don't know if you saw George's latest fish, Gulf grouper, but that shaft was a straight U. It was insane. So yeah, I shoot the fish, make sure to put the brakes on him, grab it, and make sure that you can kind of fight him as much as you can before he makes a run for the reef. And then on top of that, gear wise, is make sure you have a big enough gun that can penetrate a fish that can be upwards of 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds, and that you can use the thickest shaft that you can possibly use, because like I said, these shafts will bend. So gear wise, that's kind of that end of it. In terms of finding them and targeting them and learning their behavior, what we've generally noticed is that they like rocky structure, because they when they feel threatened, they can swim into the rocks and find cover. And a crazy story too. My buddy last trip, not last, actually, was it last trip? No, 2 trips ago, shot a grouper and he didn't put the brakes on it, and it just swam about like 50 yards, snaking through the boulders, right? Like I saw his float line go in one hole, and like 50 yards down the boulder pile, I saw the head of the fish. So that just kind of goes to show like how important that structure is to their behavior. So you want to ID the boulders. You want to find a spot with like big caves, big rocks. If there's bait there, that's a bonus. And then on top of that, this is a real secret if you want to listen up here, where the sand meets the rocks. So it doesn't have to be deep, but towards the bottom, they like to hang out on the bottom, last third of the water column, and just watch the fish from above. So I've noticed like pretty much 80% of my fish I've shot were below me. So that's kind of just a testament to how they like to sit lower on the water column. Last thing is basically in terms of behavior, they're kind of curious fish, man. Last trip, like I was about to mention, how crazy it was, I probably saw like 4, 5, 6 of them, and they were just like peeking their heads up and like looking at me broadside, but they were just staying out of range. It was a kind of clear day that day. But basically, going back to it, in terms of hunting them and learning their behavior, what I generally like to do is, find a nice like cubbyhole, rock, reef, make sure I'm well covered, and then either dust, scratch the rocks or grunt, and you'll be able to get their attention, and they'll come out. They'll give you the stare down, head to head. Sometimes you got to take that shot. Actually, that's the best shot to take, by the way. Head on, because when they try to run into the hole, they'll have a shaft sticking out their forehead, and that'll keep them from going too deep into the rocks. But yeah, so I like to espeto, get on the reef, make some noise, grunt, call them out, and then take the shot.
So when you said you're speddoing, were you looking downwards though, or were you flat trying to look upwards to see them?
Yeah, generally scanning. I'm usually scanning downwards because they're looking up too. So like 60-70% of the time, I've seen them below me. And then I'll also scan parallel to the reef too. So either to my left and to my right. Rarely have I seen a Gulf grouper come up from above me or behind me.
Perfect. Let's move on to a similar fish, the cabrilla. Are they kind of the same
Woo!
thing, or are they a little bit different tactics?
Cabrilla are definitely a little bit. It's kind of similar, but it's a little different too. Um, they're a little more sketchy. I'll say that, dude. There's this last trip, man. There were so many big ones that got away from me because I just wasn't. I was being sloppy with my diving. So in terms of cabrilla, the same thing applies in terms of equipping yourself. So make sure you're geared up with a big shaft, strong gun, breakaway float line. And then in terms of the behavior and how to hunt them, I've noticed if you hunt in Southern California, there's a fish called the calico bass, which is a kelp bass. And cabrillas, I always tell people, are like giant calicos. So if you're planning to go down there and shoot cabrillas for your first time, if you shoot calicos, it's the same kind of approach. It's like you want to be stealthy. You want to cover the ground because what I've noticed is that they congregate with one another. So if you're starting to see, decent sized cabrillas, chances are you'll find another one, but you don't want to spook the school. So that's why, you want to be stealthy. Number 2 is you got to be confident with your shot. I can't stress that enough. I have a bad habit. Like I shoot a lot of yellowtail. And so yellowtail will just let you line up the gun on them all day. You can stick your gun out, point it at them, make sure everything's perfectly lined up, and then pull the trigger. But cabrillas, for whatever reason, man, as soon as you stick a gun out, they're gonna either flick out or they're gonna, start to give you like the fade away. They look at you from behind and just start swimming away. So with cabrilla, I've noticed, I gotta pull the trigger as soon as I'm on target. So gun comes out, bang, take the shot. And the last thing is, you got to try few different techniques to kind of really start getting good with cabrillas. Like I know I still have a lot of practice or a lot to learn hunting this fish, but from what I've seen, essentially is if you can espeto, there's 2 ways, really 2 approaches to cabrilla. Either you sneakily find your way to the school and then do a drop on top of them and then surprise attack, dive bomb. And then you see one, he sees you, and he freezes up for just a sec. You take the shot. Or if you miss that window, what I've actually learned this last trip is if you can get to the bottom and espeto and just kind of wait out that initial shock of the fish running away as you're descending, you get to the bottom and just chill out and you have the bottom time for it and hang out, they can actually start to come back out. Like they'll come back out of their holes and act as if nothing's going on. They'll go back to their normal business. And then at that point, you can kind of surprise attack them again. So yeah, that's my 2 main strategies for them. Same thing too is you can find them lower in the water column, and also I've actually seen quite a few large ones in like 5 feet of water. So check the shallows too.
Are cabrilla and leopard grouper, because I've seen them in books, they kind of say the same name, but are leopard grouper a third category that are totally unique to those 2?
Not that I am aware of. There may be another species of grouper that's referred to as leopard grouper, but cabrilla is, I believe, the Spanish term for leopard grouper down in Baja. So I think the English term for them is leopard grouper.
Gotcha.
And then cabrilla, yeah. So they get mixed up, but I think they're the same species.
Then finally, let's chat about yellowtail. Is there anything special or difficult shooting yellowtail down in Baja?
Oh, yes. Dude, the Baja yellows are just so powerful. It's crazy. I'm sure you know, and I know, look, we went down to Baja, you shot a couple of them, like, 12, 15 pounders are like peeling line just nonstop. So that's why I said, I love rocking a breakaway there, because on a big yellowtail, which we just shot on this last trip, it was like over 30 pounds. Those yellows just go nuts. They go straight for the reef. Unlike the yellowtails here that swim out in open water, these guys know that as soon as they're hooked up or any issue comes around, they swim straight to the reef, and they try to like tangle up and go crazy. It's wild down there. So shooting yellows down in Baja is a lot of fun. So definitely a different experience than shooting them in Southern California. And then in terms of like finding them and behavior wise, I think the yellows down in Baja are kind of the same in terms of their curiosity. But what I've also noticed too is that the yellows in Baja actually will roll through shallow reef, and then also hang out at the bottom of the reef too. So like this last footage, my new YouTube video that I'm editing right now, I got footage of me catching a yellowtail like at 60, 65 feet at the bottom of the reef. And I was actually trying to hunt Gulf grouper, and then this nice yellow comes out of the bait ball at like 60 feet over the sand, and comes and buzzes my tower, checks me out, and I take a nice shot on it. So yeah, man, they're the same, but a little different.
Now, do you use any kind of flasher or something to try and bring them in, or are they just so plentiful down there that you don't really need to bring them in?
Oh, dude, you know the answer to that, man. It's just wild, bro. You don't need a flasher down there. There's so many yellowtail down there that they'll come up to you, and they have the confidence to like check you out and be like, "What are you?" So I don't use a flasher down there. I just go down there and just hope for the big one rolls by you.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like here in California, you're always hoping for that home guard, that big one, that big powerful one to roll on by, the mythical. But down there, that's kind of the commonplace. So it's always way exciting down there.
Yeah, man. And that last big one came down. It's like 30 plus pounds. I just did my first drop on the reef, and the current was ripping, dude. It was like, I don't even know. Like I didn't even feel safe being on the reef because I was flying so fast in that current. You'd be on the reef for like 20 seconds, and then the Pangaro had to like pick you up and reset you. But the first drop, I look over my shoulder to my right, and there's this 30-pound yellow just giving me the eyeball, like 7 feet away from me. And so I didn't want to spook him and turn my whole body at him and extend my gun. This is why, again, like I mentioned on the invert roller episode, this is the guy I saw him out of the corner of my eye to my left, and instead of turning my body, I just flicked my wrist 90 degrees to the left and pulled the trigger, like shot from the hip. And that 30-pound yellow was just towing me like crazy through the water. It was insane. Fun stories.
Dude, that's awesome. All right, that does it for this episode. I want to make sure that we have enough for tomorrow, because we're going to be chatting about catching and preparing fish, which all the fish that we talked about in this episode are delicious. So we're going to touch upon that tomorrow. If you want to check out Matt's stuff, go into the show notes, but his Instagram is Mr.California with a 1, his YouTube channel, Adventure Eats, and I'll have more links in the description. Thanks for being on the show, Matt.
Thanks, John. I'll see you on the next one, bro.
Hey, one more thing before you go. Are you looking for other folks who like to catch fish? Well, if you are, join our free fish catchers group on Discord. Just like a little club, just with like-minded people who like to catch fish, share knowledge. Just head over to castandspear.com/club for a link, and you'll go straight over there. Whether you like to spearfish, surf fish, kayak fish, you name it. If you just like to catch fish, we want to chat. All right, see you guys in there.